So, what happens when a teenager commits a crime as serious as murder? You might think the answer is simple, but, well, it's anything but. Today, we're going to dive deep into the UK's specific laws for sentencing young offenders, focusing on the crucial differences in sections 90 to 92 of the Powers of Criminal Courts Sentencing Act 2000.
Okay, to really get a handle on this, let's bring it to life with a case study. Let's imagine two people, Alex and Ben. Now, they've both been convicted of the exact same murder. But here's the twist, the one thing that changes everything. Alex is just 17 years old, while Ben is 22. And that single detail, their age, is about to send them down two wildly different paths in the justice system. You'll see what I mean.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with our two offenders, then look at the mandatory sentence under Section 90. After that, we'll explore the court's discretion with Section 91, see what detention actually means in reality under Section 92, and wrap it all up by looking at the consequences and asking some pretty critical questions.
Okay, let's dive into our first section, two offenders, one crime. So how does the sentencing divide actually work? How can a court's hands be tied so differently when they're looking at an adult versus a minor for the exact same offense?
Right, for Ben, our 22-year-old, the law is crystal clear. It's a mandatory life sentence, period. The judge doesn't really have a choice on that front. Their main job is to set the tariff. That's the minimum number of years Ben absolutely must serve before he can even think about applying for parole. The life sentence itself, it's automatic. But now, let's turn to Alex. For him, it's a completely different story, all because of his age. He's under 18, so Section 90 of the 2000 Act kicks in. And the law is just as strict here, but in a different way. It says the court must sentence him to be detained during Her Majesty's pleasure. Notice that word, must. There's no wiggle room for the judge. They have to use this very specific, very unique form of detention. So what in the world does detention during Her Majesty's pleasure actually mean? Well, think of it this way. It's an indeterminate sentence. It doesn't have a fixed end date. A judge will still set a minimum term that Alex has to serve, but after that, his release is absolutely not guaranteed. It's all in the hands of the parole board. They have to be convinced that he's been rehabilitated and isn't a danger anymore. It's a huge unknown. Okay, on to our next section. Let's switch things up. What if the crime wasn't murder? What if it was another really serious offense? This is where Section 91 comes into play, and it gives the court a whole different set of tools and a lot more discretion. So, Section 91 covers a whole host of really serious crimes. We're talking about things like manslaughter or maybe an offense like grievous bodily harm with intent. The rule of thumb is if an adult could get 14 years or more in prison for it, it falls under this section. Plus, it also specifically includes certain serious sexual offenses and firearms offenses. But here's the thing, and it's absolutely crucial. A judge can't just decide to use this power on a whim. The law says they first have to form an opinion. They have to look at the other options on the table, things like a youth rehabilitation order or a detention and training order, and decide that, you know what, neither of those is suitable for this specific case. It's a really important legal step. And once the court has made that call, that's when its discretionary power really kicks in. The judge can then impose a specified, fixed period of detention. And the ceiling for that sentence? It's the maximum term that an adult could have gotten for the very same crime. So there's a lot of power here to tailor the sentence to the crime. All right, next up, the reality of detention. So what does it all mean in practice for someone like Alex? Where they actually go? What's their legal status? Section 92 lays out the nuts and bolts. Okay, so Section 92 tells us two key things. First, the Secretary of State, that's a very senior government minister, gets to decide exactly where the young person will be detained and what the conditions will be like. Second, and this is a big one, the young person is officially deemed to be in legal custody. Now, legal custody isn't just some legal jargon. It's a really important status. It means that the whole process is official. It ensures that all the proper rules, procedures, and responsibilities that come with being detained by the state apply to this young person. But just as importantly, it also means they have all the rights and legal protections that go along with it. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We're going to do a quick comparative summary to really highlight the consequences and the big questions that arise from all this. So this table makes the contrast really stark, doesn't it?
On one side, you've got Section 90 for murder. It's mandatory, it's indeterminate, meaning indefinite, and the judge has zero discretion on the type of sentence. On the other side, Section 91, for other serious offenses, it's completely discretionary, it's for a fixed, specified period, and the judge has to actively decide that other options aren't suitable. Two very different worlds.
So let's bring it back to Alex and Ben one last time, because this is where the long-term outlook becomes so incredibly different. For Ben, the adult, he gets a mandatory life sentence, but the judge sets a minimum term, his tariff. He knows the number of years he has to serve before he can even be considered for release. But for Alex, his future is completely up in the air. His detention is indeterminate. His release hinges entirely on his progress in convincing the parole board he's no longer a risk. There's no magic date on the calendar for him.
Okay, for our final section, let's step back and think about the policy rationale. We've seen what the law does, but now we have to ask the really big question: why? What's the thinking behind having these two very different legal frameworks?
I mean, this really is the central question, isn't it? What is the policy rationale for this split? Why do we treat a 17-year-old convicted of murder under Section 90 with this indeterminate detention, but for another serious offense under Section 91, the court can give them a specified fixed-term sentence? It seems like a strange distinction.
And that really leaves us with a final, critical question to chew on. Does this distinction, does it actually make sense? Does it properly reflect the culpability and, just as importantly, the capacity for rehabilitation of a 16 or 17-year-old? It forces us to ask whether this legal divide really serves the twin goals of justice and rehabilitation in the best way possible. It's a lot to think about.